This is a clouds weather alert.
Meteorologist Casey Cloud with you in the Weather Center on this Thursday afternoon, tracking a severe thunderstorm warning here for portions of southwestern Georgia until 4 o'clock. Areas of Baker, Calhoun, Dougherty, and Mitchell counties. Some hail potential showing up here pretty well on the Doppler. That's what the warning's for. It is for the hail threat here. You see this area of dark, black in there as well as the purple. And that is indicative here of just a nasty situation where some hail could be there around quarter size in diameter, and that can cause some damage to vehicles. So you got to be very mindful of that. Warning's not really for a wind. We're not seeing a tornado threat with this right now. There is a little bit of wind enhancement though in here, so we'll need to keep our eyes on it for, a damaging wind threat and a tornado threat, that could emerge in a very isolated instance. But I know this isn't a big story compared to what we're going to have toward the weekend here in our area on Sunday, but out toward the west, Friday night, Saturday could be very bad days here of severe weather. This is not that, but it's still impactful here, and we still have to pay attention. There's a small marginal risk here for isolated tornadoes, some large hail, and some damaging wind gusts. And right now, the potential for large hail may be coming into fruition here just toward the west of State Road 91, right there near and south of State Road 62, in towards southwestern Georgia and in toward Dougherty County specifically. Now, not the most populated part of the county. You can see it looks pretty rural out there on the topography, but we'll be getting to a little more populated area here as it gets towards State Road 91 over the next little bit, and then toward Putney there especially. It's a situation here where, of course, we're always watching things for 62 counties. We're in Bradford County, North Central Florida. We're also watching, other areas of the region here. We're always on for anything impacting our 62 counties. When it's, something that's a little bit more serious, of course, any tornado warning storm, but a lot of severe thunderstorm warnings, a lot of the flash flood warnings as well. Now, sometimes we'll just post them, and we're kind of on the edge between which we just, post about this because it's not quite bad enough to come on, but we want to make sure we're talking about the weekend, potential as well. As we're looking ahead, I say weekend, even though some of it really gets going Friday night, because a lot of you guys think of Friday night as the weekend as well. And that's going to be out toward the west. Some very, very significant concerns as we're tracking things here, as we're monitoring the overall scenario out toward the west. But right now we have this one warning here in our area. It includes, areas of Dougherty County, around State Road 62 there, west of State Road 91. And we have, some wind enhancement in here. Let me go ahead and pull in some other modes. I know, looking for any type of hail signature that could stand out even more. I mean, it already stands out a good bit here, and I'll go to our other mode here to track the hail over the last little bit. It's definitely been intensifying, but it's not headed right into downtown Albany, thankfully. So that'll reduce the impacts to some degree. But if you look here, these orange is indicative of hail a moment ago, maybe upward about maybe to 1.38 inches in diameter. Right now, 1.22 inches according to the radar product. And that latest update back to 1.34. So at least it's headed right into downtown Albany here. I know they're under the warning, so, if it started to go a little bit further north, that'd be a bigger deal. But Putney, there's quite a few homes down there, and it could be headed toward that vicinity, depending on if it keeps trying to sneak a little south or not. You can see that track. I know this is the current maximum estimated hail size, but then this is the path of that over the last 60 minutes. So you can see how we had the greens out was indicative of only about half an inch in diameter of hail, but then getting upward there of something a little more significant as it's progressed further on off toward the east. So again, a nasty situation here, obviously. Something that's really worth watching here and worth monitoring as we're looking there. You see Southwest Georgia Airport's up here. The worst is that should go just south of there, but any flights that might be coming in there might be having, some maybe changes to their path there. And the like, just to be taking extra precaution. I know we have a strong storm just north of our area, west of Americus there. That's not in our 62 counties, but it's a pretty strong storm. A little weak rotation on both of these, but there is a small tornado threat. That's not our biggest concern today. That blue area indicates a little bit of tornado parameter to the south. supercell composites, a little bit more energy is there though. And we're going to be paying attention, but I know if you're around like Stark here, a lot of this is not really going to hold together toward the east. So let me go ahead and progress this out in the modeling here real quick for everybody at home. Because we'll go ahead and set the model guidance. This is what it was supposed to look like at 3 o'clock. It's maybe a little bit more filled in than that, but that's 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. You see some more in the word Tallahassee, maybe. We'll see if those go severe. 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11. You see it not really holding together the word Stark. You see by midnight, nothing really there. And then maybe some stuff to the north. I will zoom out a little. That's interesting to see a little bit of that near Columbus, but that kind of fades off here too. And then I go out as far as this will let me on this run, and we'll be watching out toward the west. And in fact, let's go ahead and I'll take the model off for a second so I can go all the way back to 12Z, because I want to just show you HRRR for the national perspective here too. I know this is the only one in the whole country right now, the one we have in our local area. But let me go ahead and show you here toward areas further out. I know this is in the overnight tonight. You don't see too much, but eventually, granted, this model may underdo it at points. I hadn't looked at this specific run, but I looked at HRRR last night. It seemed to be underdoing some of this further up, maybe keeping it too dry. But this is in the afternoon tomorrow. I don't see much, so tomorrow afternoon looks pretty calm nationally here overall. But then all of a sudden, I mean, this will be 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and this may be a little slow, quite honestly, but it finally starts to develop this. There will be a wildfire risk, by the way, in Oklahoma and the like tomorrow, but you see there, eventually it gets very dicey, and this is probably underdoing it a little bit. There, this is tomorrow night, but even if this threat is a little bit underplayed here, it doesn't come to fruition. You see all these storms by themselves in like Tennessee, middle of the night, early Saturday, but then we'll be watching down here already, and there could be storms. You know, some of that in the morning could be a way to knock out power ahead of the bigger event, and or it could suppress some of the bigger storm action later on. We'll see. But let's go to the NAM 3 kilometer, and this will let us go out a little bit further at least on this, and you'll be able to see we start to really get some organization in Mississippi. And again, this may not be quite doing it complete justice here about how bad this could be, because there's some other model runs that could help tell a story a little bit better that we're not ever really showing here yet, but and have the latest data. But this is look at the warning information. This is just north of our area now. This storm is moving southeast, it looks like, so that could be something that we have to watch in our area. Then it may be something that storm there northwest of America now has a warning for 60-mile-an-hour wind gust and quarter size hail. That could be something here to have to watch toward, you know, Sumter County, just north of the area, but then maybe into ward areas there. You see Dawson, you see areas there in Lee County, Georgia as well. So we'll be paying attention in those communities too as the situation does progress here, folks. As the situation does progress, I know there's a lot going on. I want to see forecast here as we look ahead, because those model runs, they may not quite be doing it justice about how bad this could be here looking ahead in toward the timeline, folks. This could be a very, very big deal as we get out there tomorrow night in toward that early Saturday to begin. I mean, that's what the storms could have even earlier with the wind in Oklahoma, where they could have wildfires possible. So that's not good. Not good when you're talking about that, but I will go ahead and show you right now here a look at some more information. So I'm going to go ahead and switch on over toward another mode here that'll kind of help tell that story. This is the Storm Prediction Center official forecast for tomorrow here. None of these update a good bit, so I'm just kind of sharing the screen right now since, you know, we're on our live coverage for the local thread here. I want to make sure I'm kind of giving you guys the latest information here. And you see that red area, that's obviously not something you really want to see at all, but that is a 4 to 5 severe weather risk there for tomorrow night. St. Louis, Missouri. Of course, Cape Girardeau, Missouri is in there as well. Hannibal there in Missouri. Over in Illinois, you're talking about Springfield, Illinois, Peoria, Decatur, and Champaign. even in northwestern Kentucky, northwest Tennessee. So a very big in terms of threat type of scenario setting on up. And now in terms of the tornadoes, tomorrow maybe a little less about the tornadoes and a little bit more about the wind. But that's still a very significant tornado potential because strong tornadoes are possible still in near the hatched area. But that's not what's prompting the moderate 4 out of 5 risk. That is a 3 out of 5 risk there. This is the 4 out of 5. You see that purple? That is a very high confidence in winds where we could even see gusts there upwards and maybe hurricane force. So that's in that purple. So widespread power outages are not out of the question. Charged devices may be more scattered, but even if it's just more scattered to widespread something like that, then you'll be, really wanting to have had those devices charged up. As you see that hatched area, and then you see the hail threat there. The hatched area could mean hail. You could see hail there. That's very significant, maybe 2 inches in diameter or greater there in that hatch zone. So that can do a lot of damage here. I mean, wind and hail together, that means a big problem potentially here as we're looking. And then as we get towards Saturday, I know some of this already including areas there Friday night, in the wee hours of Saturday morning, even around Tuscaloosa and western Tennessee, almost getting into northern Nashville late in the night, in the overnight. But then on that Saturday, we have a risk here. That's already a 45 overall risk, which is very high that far out. This is the latest update. This just came in here in the last few minutes, actually. The latest update here for that Saturday. See New Orleans, in Louisiana, Jackson, Mississippi, as we're dealing with things there. Starkville, Mississippi, Meridian, Hattiesburg, Birmingham, Huntsville, down toward Montgomery, Mobile, if I haven't already talked about you guys. It's a very nasty situation. Even in toward our area, you see southwestern Georgia covered in a 30% hatch zone. That means a significant severe weather, a higher chance than normal with that even toward like Albany. And that doesn't just include our area there and, in the 4 areas of the Florida zones like Gadsden, but also, you see up towards like Atlanta, and some of this could be in the overnight and the eastern part of that as well. So this is a big deal, and it doesn't just end there, folks. We'll go in toward that Sunday, and you'll see what I'm talking about here. This is a risk, and I need to go ahead and stop this so it doesn't loop all the way around. But as we go ahead and look at things, you can see a risk from North Florida now, including Stark, including Gainesville. Now, this may not be as bad as what they're going to see up toward the west. Includes Jacksonville, areas there of the Big Bend, up into where south central, southeast Georgia, and this goes all the way up to Scranton, Pennsylvania. So this may be more about wind at that point. We'll see. You still have to look at the high res guidance to know for sure. And in fact, I'll just scroll down and we'll read some of this together here because you can see some of the information from the Storm Prediction Center there in Norman, Oklahoma. You can see there, they're talking about this threat there. One of these government agencies that's, really always keep an eye on the weather for everybody here in the country. You can see they're talking about a large-scale upper trough near the Mississippi Valley Sunday morning will develop east to the Appalachians, whatever you want to call them there, about early Monday, and then the strong deep layer south to southwesterly flow on the eastern side of the upper trough will overspread much of the eastern U.S., and convection will be likely ongoing Sunday morning from the upper Ohio Valley into Georgia and northern Florida. And this activity moving to a moist air mass characterized by dew points there around 60 from North Florida to Chesapeake Bay vicinity, and then 50s further north. And the dew points and instability be greatest where deep and deeper boundary layer moisture is forecast, but given very, intense type of deep layer flow, organized convection is expected even with only some modest instability, and why linear convection, that producing damaging gusts to be the main hazard, tornado potential will exist there where sufficient boundary layer moisture exists, mostly, more likely from the Carolinas southward. So it's a busy period here, folks. Obviously, we're going to be keeping an eye on everything. It's all about protecting you, your friends, and your family. As busy as a period you'll ever see in the whole country in terms of the national type of threat. I mean, to start off with a national threat, out the way to the north and west of Missouri, and then all the way, by Sunday getting here with something more significant, than what we're seeing right now at least. Nothing, more significant than what we're going to see in Missouri and maybe Alabama. first off, but just right now, this is pretty marginal convection that we're dealing with at the moment. So what we would get from that event will be more significant than this, what we're dealing with now. There's a lot going on. It's kind of hard to, give you a synopsis of it there, quite honestly, because there's just so much to talk about. A very big weather maker. We're going to have a very significant low pressure, as we're looking ahead here in toward the timeline, very deep low pressure. So that's something to really be mindful of as we look ahead there and toward the timeline. Gotta be very mindful of it. Gotta be paying attention. I know, I'm just trying to keep you guys up to date here. Go ahead and zoom back out just a little bit and see some of these temperatures. You see 70s in a lot of communities, 80s in others, but there are a few 60s out there. 68 Brunswick area there, and a few in Southwest Georgia showing up as well. We're at 77 here east of Stark, by the way, but again, most of this is not going to hold together for us here in Bradford County. We have 62 counties to cover, though, and that's why we're focusing on what we're dealing with right now up in there in the ward areas there to south of the Southwest Georgia airport. So that looks a little weaker on that hail tracker. That's a good sign that that's weakening some, but the radar coverage isn't great out there. I'm hoping, that one will go away, but then we'll have to watch further to the north. That other storm here is, it depends because these are right on the edge of going severe. We could have a bunch of the stronger storms and not too many more warnings at all, or we could barely get, marginal severe storms. We have a decent number of them, so it's kind of iffy, but we'll probably have quite a few storms out toward the west. I know you can see there up toward like Americas there, even a little bit of rotation on that. Now that looks to be, and I'm going to kind of zoom out a little bit here. We'll try to see if this will loop it all the way through. I've been switching radar some, but it's kind of been picking up on this here and see going from a warning to not, and we're just going to keep watching the progression of this here. Some of these areas in South Central Georgia may get impacted here at some point, so we're going to be paying attention. But as we look here toward Dougherty County, that's where we have the warning in play right now. So again, continuing to watch, continuing to track here. I know we have some strong accent up in some of the other communities there. Decatur County and the like. You see some accent that we're watching. North of Dothan. Watching some as well. You see this was a pretty strong storm there in Clay County, Georgia. But no advisory as of the moment. There is a new advisory for Henry and Dale, but that's Henry County in Alabama as we're looking at things. So, again, just trying to give you guys the very latest here on what's happening. Okay, they're going to go with a new warning, it looks like, in our area. Baker, Dougherty, Mitchell until 4:45 for the hail potential. Quarter-size hail possibility still. Radium Springs, Red Store Crossroads, Lockett Crossing, East Albany, the Marine Corps Logistics Base, South Albany, Southwest Georgia Airport, Lester, Putney, Baconton, Williamsburg, Albany, and Walker. Honestly, a little surprised they issued that quickly there. I don't see any reports in my system. Doesn't mean there are not any reports. But they're going to go ahead and issue a new one. It's just for the hail, not for the wind. So that's, something we don't get around here all that often, quite honestly. And since it's not going right into Albany, we're going to play this by ear, but we may wrap coverage here or go to a radar stream or something along those lines if the trends continue like this, because the overall threat with this is it's not that big of a deal compared to, some of the action that'll be coming in later on in toward the period. So, continuing to watch and know some of these areas are getting some hail. Just the overall setup there with the atmosphere producing some of that potential. That is the type of setup. I was looking at the modeling last night. It was seemingly more favorable for that than anything else because of the overall parameters there that are in play in the atmospheric scenario. So Again, continuing to watch here, continuing to monitor. Again, trying to keep you guys safe and informed. I'm going to go ahead and go back on over to another mode here. And we're just going to keep looking at things. That health threat definitely is seemingly, I know the river cover didn't great sometimes, but that's really dropped a good bit over the last little bit there in that southern storm. That northern storm, that's not, a big concern. This further north storm is a concern, though. And right now it's unhailed about an inch. It was a little bit bigger looking, though, earlier on. So, again, continue to track all this here. Let's see what else we want to show. I know that lunar eclipse coming up tonight. We're hoping for the clouds to be not around for that, but we'll see. I mean, that doesn't look too bad there, but some of our area might have more problems trying to see that than others. So, again, just trying to continue to track this here. Trying to give you the very latest. Trying to keep you safe here. Again, this pales into comparison with what's going to be coming up in the, event to come toward that weekend period, but still can be impactful here for sure. And tonight, toward north central Florida, maybe a little more clear, which would be good to see that lunar eclipse, but there could be fog around too, so then that could be a, deterrent to seeing some of that. So we shall see as we're looking. Just got to keep those fog safety tips in mind, making sure you're giving yourself extra time to reach your destination there, and using those low beam headlights. And it's very important stuff to keep in mind, because those can be definitely dangerous situations. I'm continuing to look at information here behind the scenes. Not really seeing too many power outages there in South Georgia. I do see 52 out in Ben Hill County. Not even sure that's weather related, but again, this is, really a small thing compared to what's going to happen here as we look ahead into the timeline. But we are still tracking this. So again, trying to keep you guys safe and informed here. Trying to keep you up to date. Going to keep looking at some of the information. You see the energy around. You see supercell composite, tornado perimeter. Some of that's not exactly in the perfect spot, which is good, obviously. Some of that was really coming together last week there in toward Central Florida, or early this week toward Central Florida there, toward Lake Mary. I'll never forget what happened there, obviously. But again, continuing to track that somewhere in America, that's something that could be a concern as we get there into some of our northern counties here and northern zones. Some of these right on the edge of the viewing circle. So we'll continue to watch all of that. Again, some of these are not the most impressive at this point, but we're just going to keep monitoring them. Whenever thunder roars, you want to go indoors, obviously. Very important to keep in mind. Trying to keep you guys up to date. Again, let's recap what we're talking about in the future here with a threat. as we get ahead to later tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and pull this on up. This is that day 2 convective outlook from the Storm Prediction Center there. Norman, Oklahoma, they monitor all of this, and you see the tornado threat hatched area means strong tornado possible there in that zone, maybe multiple ones. The probability of a tornado within 25 miles of a point is what a tornado risk shows, but in the hatched area means 10% or greater probability of EF2 to EF5 tornadoes within 25 miles of a point. And then your wind risk there, you see that purple, significant, and hail there as well. I know that area there in the hatch zone, so much concern, and just got to be really mindful of what could happen. You don't see a moderate risk here very often, and you have that there later tomorrow night, so there could be a lot of problems. I know that tornado risk is not as big as the wind risk in terms of the overall concern with that on Friday. On Saturday, it may be a different story. This is just showing the overall probabilities, but quite honestly, it's a situation here where, as we look ahead, that Saturday risk could feature just, very significant tornadoes. It could be about as bad as it gets in the meteorology world if some of the models that are painting a grim picture coming to fruition. I mean, you see pretty much Tallahassee West even in the hatch zone, and a lot of that threat could come overnight there, but you see in the purple, that's where we could have, the greatest probability for truly life-altering tornadic activity. Granted, even in the red zone, even in some of our western counties, it may not be a bad idea here to have plans to be, if you're living in a mobile home, you may want to be thinking about having another option here in terms of, because of the weather coming in, mobile homes are not really the best things to be in. This could be very bad in terms, I'm talking about whole homes. There's a chance in that purple especially. We could be talking about whole homes completely destroyed. All that's left is a foundation here in isolated communities. So if you're talking about a whole home, it's not even going to take as much wind to do that. Just completely wipe it away here pretty much, rip it apart. And if you're in that, you're going to be really in a bad situation there where it could be a matter of life and death. So, I hate to be that grim with the prognosis. And of course, tornadoes are over a more isolated area in general than a hurricane. So a lot of folks will be okay. Some will have the wind damage and not from a tornado. Some will have hail damage. Some folks won't get too much. But some folks could just have the absolute worst. Now, as we go to day 4 outlook here, you can see as we're looking at things, even some of our areas in north central Florida under risk on your Sunday. So let's go ahead and tell you about some of those tornado precautions here. Let's kind of rehash this as we're looking. I know it's almost as if this kind of reminds me a little bit of when we were breaking in for those random tornado warnings during Helene, but I would keep using the updates here to kind of talk about the bigger picture. I didn't, have a situation maybe prior to that too much where I would do that, but that's kind of where we're at here. This is kind of minor compared to what, the big event that's coming could be, especially for the national picture, but even somewhat for the local picture as well. We kind of want to use these updates. We talked about all the danger with Hurricane Helene there. Later on, we had all these random tornado warnings ahead. Now this is, will be a little bit more of a break in between maybe than with that, because we went right into the hurricane itself, pretty much covering that there with not much of a break. But the point being is this is kind of the, the early part of some nasty weather coming in. This is not even connected here, as we're looking at things to the bigger picture. So directly anyway. I know there's a report now, 3:34 p.m. video, small hail in southwestern Lee County, 3 miles southeast of the community of Oakland, in Lee County, Georgia, pea-size hail. So, that's not that big of a deal compared to what could be coming, especially toward the west. Again, just like those, tornado warnings that we had as a prelude to Helene, and then Helene's, devastating surge locally and up to the north there. It wasn't just devastating surge locally, it was catastrophic in some spots, but then up to the north, catastrophic flooding in the North Carolina mountains and the like. We could be talking about out to the west here, out toward areas like Mississippi and some of those zones, Louisiana, Alabama. We could be talking about catastrophic tornadoes, catastrophic tornadic activity. So when there's a tornado watch in play, that means conditions are favorable for tornadic activity. Want to stay tuned for the latest updates. Have multiple ways to receive alerts, and when a tornado warning is in play, that means a tornado has been detected using radar or spotted. You want to seek such and such a sturdy building, get as many walls between you and the outside as possible, and protect yourself from flying debris by putting on a bicycle helmet, football helmet, baseball helmet, something like that. So again, very serious stuff as we're looking at things. This could be a very big deal here, folks, toward, the weekend. We could be talking about a significant number of injuries, a significant loss of life here if things do come to fruition off toward the west. That's how volatile the severe parameters are, but we want to try to mitigate that now ahead of the storm. The storm system of it could be very significant out toward areas there toward the west, even in Missouri as well. We just want to make sure you know what to do. You don't want to be mobile home if you can help it in these type of situations, because I'll go ahead and see the EF scale as kind of a guide on this here. Let me go ahead and do that. Bear with me. I want to pull that on up. So we're going to take away the tips here right now, these safety tips, and pull this on in. And you can see here, we're not just, talking about a situation where, tornadoes that'll have light damage will be in play. We're talking about more significant ones. But even an EF, like one tornado, could pretty much rip a mobile home completely apart here. It doesn't take very much. I mean, a tree, even an EF0 tornado could fall on one, and that could be fatal. But an EF1, that's when you really start, it becomes even more likely then that a tornado could really just have devastating consequences to a mobile home. But, so even a lower-end tornado could be very tragic for those in a mobile home. But EF2 type tornado, we saw the home, well-built home, completely ripped apart in Central Florida back on Monday morning there in the Lake Mary area. So we could have, you don't want to ever say a number, but we could literally have, a dozen or more EF2 or stronger tornadoes coming into play here in the national picture in the days to come. It's just, that's very, arbitrary there in terms of giving out that number. It's not something that is very precise here, but just trying to give you guys the very latest on what could happen. We're not talking about just one, that's what it was in Central Florida back Monday morning. We're talking about many, many strong tornadoes. The parameters are very volatile here, folks. As we look ahead, we could be talking about tornadoes that could even get on the EF4 or stronger range. We have not had an EF5 in the country in over a decade, and we hope that trend continues. But this is the type of event here where we could have an EF5. It's not out of the question, and that's something you don't really want to have to ever talk about as a meteorologist. That's just very scary to be talking about here. And we're going to do something else, because I'm, some other systems, I see the ARRR on some of these different runs here, folks, and computer sources, but this source here is kind of what I look at behind the scenes, and this is not good as we're looking toward Mississippi on Saturday, Louisiana as well. I'm just going to kind of start this on up. Let's see, where do we want to start this? We want to start this there. Yeah, we'll start this in the overnight hours there. So we'll say about midnight Central Time. And I just remember thinking about what they were talking about in past broadcasts down toward like that zone there where they've had tornadic activity. Not saying it'll be like this, but it's not out of the complete realm of possibility. We could have some pockets of something similar to what happened. This is something I don't know if I've ever said on the air here since I've been doing this. We could have a situation in some pockets that's similar to April 27, 2011. Not as bad in that widespread scale, mind you, but still, this could be something that is extraordinarily serious out toward the west. That's something that's a once-in-a-generation thing in terms of what transpired then. But this is the ARRR, and I just want to kind of say some things here. So the overnight hours you can see some supercells already trying to get going, and then I put supercell composite on. There's a decent amount of parameter axing down here, but then as I progress, watch toward Mississippi and Louisiana, all these well-defined, discrete storms here, and they're just in a boatload of parameters here. These are parameters that are almost off the charts, quite honestly, as we're looking at things. So that's not good. This is from the College of DuPage Next Lab, by the way. I use this a lot behind the scenes. I don't generally say this too much on the air, but we could have some real problems here. Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock. You know, it could be very bad out toward Mississippi, the way things are setting up here. I mean, some of these blues indicative of parameters to about 10 or 11. That's similar to what we saw some of those areas around Birmingham back on that fateful day in April of 2011. So we got to really pay attention to this, is what I'm trying to say. There's a chance that this could get mitigated still to some degree, this threat, but we really got to be careful. We really got to be mindful. That's a very well-defined setup, and this is honestly for the South in that event to some degree. So, you know, even New Orleans there, they need to be very mindful of what could happen. You see, Mobile would be in the hours to come from this. Only goes out to 48 hours, so we really got to pay attention here. I'm kind of, you can't see my mouse on this, but that's I'm kind of doing a circle in areas that are further downstream to have to pay attention. And even, I don't use the NAM a whole bunch, but let's say the NAM here. This is 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central, and you see how that look at that Northeast Mississippi. They're staying together for hours, and even these are terrible. Even north of Mobile, these tornado parameters, even at 1, 2 in the morning, and then they start to really fall off as they get closer to our area, and you don't see a big resurgence. But supercell composite, there's definitely still some isolated tornado risk. But we're talking about a situation that can be very serious, my friends. Very serious out toward the west. Something you rarely see in here in the meteorology world. Let's hope it doesn't happen that way. But there are some very significant concerns. Okay, we got a warning now to the south. Okay, on this storm near the border now of Florida and Georgia. This is going to be for 60-mile-an-hour winds and quarter-size hail now. This is really strengthening quickly here along the Florida-Georgia border. So this is going to be a storm that even has a little hook on it, no rotation, enough to mention the potential for a tornado. Yeah, but northeastern Gaston, northeastern Leon, southern Grady, and southwestern Thomas counties until 5 o'clock at 4:10. A severe thunderstorm is located 9 miles northeast of Havana, moving east at 15 miles an hour, 60-mile-an-hour wind gust, quarter-size hail. You have areas there like Rocky Hill under this. So that kind of tells it's a pretty rural area, thankfully. Because north of this is in Cairo. South of this is in Tallahassee. It's kind of splitting the gap here. But Metcalf could have issues kind of going south of Thomasville proper here, too. That's good news. But another storm you guys need to watch around Thomasville that's kind of getting on in there right now. That's pretty strong in nature. Not severe yet, but we got 2 warnings now in the area. This warning here, it's a pretty strong storm headed toward, Colquitt and Worth counties here. West of I-75 for now here over the next little bit. But again, got, the 3 storms here you see on the map, 2 in our area. But 1 to the north of the area. Again, this is still nothing like what we're going to have toward that weekend period, though. Still, got to be paying attention, however, as we continue to give you the latest. Continuing to give you updates. We're at 4:13 on this Thursday, March 13th, 2025. I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. I know how as we look ahead here in that timeline, at least a lot of that will be trying to make its way out there early on that St. Patrick's Day based on the latest looks at things. But what a busy period we're going to have. One of the busier periods we've ever had doing cloud weather, probably in terms of the national picture. And it comes, into our local area, becomes a local story here. As we look ahead, already a 4 out of 5 first 2 days in a row. Could even get a 5 out of 5 especially I would be surprised if we didn't get a high risk for a Saturday based on how bad things look right now in Mississippi. Now, let's see, I'm going to read this discussion real quick if they talk about maybe upgrading that risk there. If they upgraded it probably for wind driven, as we're looking towards St. Louis, somewhere around there. Maybe if the wind threat just becomes so pronounced, and that could be the storyline that is a big deal, but it's already a big deal, don't get me wrong. I'm talking about getting to a high risk. Continuing to keep you up to date. I'm looking at things south of Reno there in Grady County. That storm, that hail signature's intensifying there north of Tallahassee. As we continue to watch. Continue to track. You can see that dark green there on the map. That's a threat there for some severe weather that continues. Light green is a thunderstorm risk. You see that cutting off right before it gets to Stark, so that's a sign that the accident will be weakening as it tries to make its way further east because the overall parameters are lacking. And you see the dew points are quite a bit lower down to the south and east. Drier conditions overall at the lower levels. I know that period number is probably not right, but the general trend is from 60s to the north, but down to 41 dew pointer on Keystone, so a lot drier air. Less supportive of the accent here at this point in time. And you also see the wind direction kind of shifts as well. As we continue to give you the latest. Trying to keep you guys safe. Let me go ahead and keep looking at things. You can see that hail signature there. That's a pretty rural area, thankfully. As we look to the north, around Bridgeboro, we're watching that storm. Continuing to keep you up to date. Continuing to keep you informed. It's all about protecting you, your friends, and your family. .418 now the time. Again, continuing to keep you up to date here for our 62 counties. Let's remind you guys of our covered area. We're always on for any tornado warning storm moving to the 62 counties. I'm in Bradford County. We're watching out for the 62 counties. Right now we have Baker, Doherty, and Mitchell endured under a severe thunderstorm warning until 4:45. And then Gadsden, Leon, Grady, and Thomas going between Florida and Georgia under a warning until 5. The one that on the border there of the two states. As for wind and hail, the one further up is more for just a quarter-size hail potential. But both have to be very, watched. Both have to be watched very carefully here, very closely, obviously. So we're just gonna keep on tracking them. Just gonna keep on monitoring them here. It's all about protecting you, your friends, and your family. Let me go ahead and go back on over here toward another mode. That's the Doppler presentation here. You see that wind risk increasing for sure. Those are the winds going about 45 miles an hour right there near the state line. It's a very rural area, mind you, but that's about to cross over Meridian Road there. And for tracking things, this one here is moving out of the warning. Let's switch to a different radar. See a different vantage point on this. They may extend that. I kind of think they probably would extend that. It'll just be for hail, probably though, from Bridgeboro down toward northern parts of Colquitt County. Give or take as we're monitoring it, as we're tracking. I know, by the way, we'll have our formal update here late tonight, assuming we're not on with this just for several hours or anything to that level. We'll have that formal update late tonight because we are very concerned there about that weekend. As concerned as you'll ever get here in the meteorology world. So, not fun at all. So again, just a one-man band here as we talked about over the years, but we try to stay on here. We have to repeat ourselves sometimes, but you know we have new viewers coming in to the coverage, some of them leaving the coverage. It's all about keeping you guys safe. Not a tornado situation, so we don't really have to just stay with this forever and ever, but you want to make sure we're on top of this to protect everybody. I know another thing that's really important to mention here is there's a lot of basketball fans out there in the country, and unfortunately here as we look ahead, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of complaints from television viewers about interruptions, but interruptions to their games that are on broadcast television because the meteorologists have to be on the air when there's dangerous situations like a tornado warning impacting portions of the viewing circles. So just a heads up, a lot of those games air whether on CBS or Fox here in the days to come, whether it's the Big East semifinals or finals, or a situation there with the overall Big Ten semifinals or finals on CBS, the Mountain West final there on CBS, the A-10 final, I believe it is, on CBS. A lot of that's going to be getting interrupted depending on what market you're in. It'll be what time, but there's going to be complaints, but that's just the way it goes. I know sometimes CBS, especially, they have streaming available. It kind of depends on the contracts there. But I know sometimes CBS Sports would have a stream where you could watch stuff. I'm not 100% sure if they still have it like that or not, but I know Fox Sports, they have their Fox Sports app, but you would need cable authentication for that. I know CBS may be the same way now. I'm really not sure because this has kind of been, something I haven't looked at quite as much here lately because there's been going on here with, weather concerns here so much. I hadn't been too many regular season games worth watching here lately, quite honestly, in that you don't have really the SEC or the ACC there for the most part on broadcast television with the college basketball there in the regular season, unless it's on the CW there with the ACC or occasional SEC game on ABC. I know the one that was on ABC, we have a new warning, so I don't want to go too much more on this tangent, but that one that was on ABC ended up having a technical glitch and they couldn't continue because they had a transmission there problem with the generator that apparently, according to sources, caught on fire. But anyway, let's go ahead and get back into this here. You can see maximum hail size there northwest of Darwin, Georgia, over an inch now in diameter. So we have a new warning now at 5 o'clock, like I was alluding to here. East Central Mitchell County, northwestern Colquitt, as well as southern Worth County there, and north southwest South Central Georgia. At 421, a severe thunderstorm was located 7 miles northwest of Darwin or 8 miles southeast of Putney, moving east at 25 miles an hour. I know we have Bridgeboro, Minton, Darwin, Scooterville, Livingston, Anderson City, Tickner, Minnesota, Parkerville, Powelltown, Sly, Sigsbee, Prentice, Freeman, New Allen, Alford there into this. I know we wouldn't be getting on a tangent like we did if these were just overwhelmingly severe tornadic storms, but these are on the edge of severe right now. But we're watching. That warning to the west continues with an update. Quarter-size hail possible on Lester, Georgia. Yeah, this storm here, quarter-size hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds possible into the Florida-Georgia line. So Again, just continuing to track, continuing to monitor here. Checking everything the best I can. Going through all the latest. Going through all the latest data. Ooh, I don't like the look on the storm near the state line here. This is starting to really get a hook on it. They may put a tornado possible tag on this here if the trends continue, because the other radar, which doesn't have as much of the interference per se, is showing something a little bit more significant in terms of some rotation. I'm going to pull it up because it has a shear marker on here now. We need to start to watch this right there north of Bradfordville. I know it's pretty rural out there, but that's starting to show some rotation. That's some inflow there. So if that continues, they may at least put a tornado possible tag on here, and if that really continues, we may even get a tornado warning with this. So we need to be kind of careful here, because sometimes in these spots here on the radar, you have kind of a blind spot. I don't particularly love what I'm seeing there out of that right now. I don't particularly love that hook on that. That seems like a cause for concern to me. Just continuing to stick with this here. Checking some more information. See if there's any new updates. That wind enhancement is concerning. Again, this is very rural. It is kind of a little bit more in the southern part of this warning. So let's kind of just starts to dive a little bit southeast here. Let's kind of be prepared for that. So if that happens, let's kind of see it could come down toward Miccosukee. Eventually, it could be down toward Monticello too. So that's something to be mindful. That's obviously more populated down that way. If it really starts to take more of a southeasterly jog here, I'm just not. That's obviously the strongest signature we've had all day here in our area in terms of these signatures. This is not something that's overwhelming, but a weak tornado. And that's the inflow, by the way, if you're wondering. That's not a tornado debris signature. Sometimes people mistake that for a tornado debris signature because they see the blue, but it's not co-located as inflow here into this notch. So again, you know, if we started to see something that's more co-located, then that'd be a different story potentially. But this is not going to be anything like, you know, as we're looking here, not going to see anything like what we're going to have toward the weekend. But still, an EF0, EF1 tornado can be pretty problematic. I mean, you had an EF2 in Central Florida. Asked the folks around St. Mary, or Lake Mary, excuse me, of how that went there back on Monday morning there, Lake Mary there indoor Central Florida. That was not fun for those folks. So, again, continuing to watch things here, continuing to track them. So that storm's worth watching there. Again, these are in fairly rural areas, quite honestly, which sometimes we wouldn't be on for these in these rural areas too much, but that looks like it's probably producing some hail around Ridgeboro. I think that signature's a few minutes old. Surprised that that's kind of the way that's sewed up there, but I suspect that is producing hail there. It's about to be around State Road 133. That could, do some damage, at least minor damage to vehicles by denting them up and the like. But we do need to go back to the topic in terms of that severe threat in the future. As we talked about, not something we do as much, just going, really into the threat in the future like this, but that's the one that's much more significant here. That's why we're in alert mode, because this could be the storm, setup of the year in terms of severe weather. And it could, depending on how the, scenario actually comes together, because you have to watch for instability, you have to watch in the real time how things come together here in the meteorology. it may not just be the storm setup of in terms of severe weather, not counting hurricane season, but not the setup of the year in terms of the danger being the highest and being maximized, but it could be one of the biggest severe weather threats of the decade here as we're looking out toward the west based on some of the latest model guidance. So we really need to be careful. I know Missouri has a moderate risk like they do down to the south. Still could be deadly up there, don't get me wrong. And the tornado threat could increase, but I'm for that area watching more of that wind threat. That could cause a lot of power outages there. A lot of power outages. And the Friday night, that could be something where if folks aren't paying attention, could be, even more escalated in terms of the damage potential there and the impact of lives there as well. If people aren't, staying up to date, car could get flipped over, and then that could be really bad news. As you see the hail threat there as well. But this is something, this could be, that threat is a big deal. It could be something we'll talk about for a long time. This is what, if the models are right here, and I hope, the ones that are going so significantly out there with the overall threat, I hope they're not right, because this could be something, like the bad days in the past, like April 27, 2011, which I really hate to mention because I know that scared a lot of folks. Not going to be to that level. Granted, we could have pockets of damage that look like that fateful day. That's how bad this is looking here out toward the west. I got to be honest. We don't want to just say after the fact, well, we thought that was going to happen, but we didn't want to scare you. We have to go ahead and give you the warning here. We have to tell you the truth here. And we're really concerned. I mean, this could be a day, we could have a tornado somewhere in that purple or even the red zone, and that does include some of our area. Granted, I don't think the threat would be as high in our zones as some of those other areas in the red, and especially in the purple, but we could have a tornado like a Joplin type tornado or a Moore tornado. Those are tornadoes, if you're understanding where I'm going with this, those are about the F5 tornadoes, the F5 tornadoes in the past, and that's something we haven't seen in the country in over a decade. If we have something like that, it'd be just a horrific situation. Or we could have a tornado like the Mayfield tornado that was like high in EF4 tornado a few years ago. That tornado there in eastern Alabama, Smith Station area, back, going back, I think it was 2019 now. Have something like that, or the Cookville tornado that was in EF4 there in early 2020, right before COVID began in earnest there. So again, just continuing to monitor things here. Continuing to give you the latest updates. So, trying to keep you informed. Trying to keep you abreast of the situation. Again, that is very bad seeing that purple there this far out. That is high confidence and very significant danger here, folks. In that purple, especially. I mean, we're talking about New Orleans, right before St. Patrick's Day, and really bad news. A little harder to get the violent tornadoes down there, but they can definitely happen, closer to the coast too. But as you look here east and near Tallahassee on that Sunday up, indoor south, central, southeast Georgia, but even through like Stark, Jacksonville, Gainesville is a lower but still pronounced enough risk. You could have some type of tornado watch, maybe, and/or severe thunderstorm watch in play for portions of the area continuing Sunday morning in the afternoon. So we got to pay attention. Could even continue there, into that early evening where some folks in some markets may even see, depending on where they are and it's yellow, could even see their selections. So for the NCAA men's basketball tournament on CBS, they're get interrupted, maybe get preempted or put in a double box because things are just too dangerous to, leave regular programming on. Folks have to be on to warn of the danger instead of the severe weather potential. So, okay, we have these warnings that continue in our area that we're on for right now, though. This is, the very small appetizer for the big event coming up, but still a problem nonetheless if you're under these. Bridgeboro to Darwin. For watching this, by the way, if you're just watching, for the first time today, I want to mention that, most of this stuff won't hold together towards Stark or Gainesville. Threat for rain even is pretty low toward the south and east as we look ahead, but we're always watching things on all the different platforms. Facebook there, Twitter/X, YouTube, Twitch, and you have Clouder.com and the interactive radar for when we're not on the air. You can look at that there as well, Clouder.com. radar. So we're always trying to keep you up to date here on what's going on. We're watching that storm. That isn't so much wind energy. That's more about hail. The latest update just talks about hail to an inch possible there in parts of Colquitt and Worth counties till 5 o'clock. But now this near the state line does have a tornado possible tag on it. That hook is concerning. That inflow, not, is something that, you see that blue, that's indicative of inflow, not a tornado at this point, it wouldn't seem, but inflow, that's right there. If we just get something to tighten up in terms of a tornado, and maybe getting a tornado warning at some point here soon, that'd be something that crosses 319. So, again, continuing to track this here, continuing to monitor this here for sure. And we're just going to keep giving you the latest updates. That's south of Thomas, so it's in a kind of a spot where there's not near as many folks as others, but we know we have folks still that could be watching us out there. That rotation looks a little weaker on the further away radar, so that's a better sign. But it's not an all clear, and there definitely could be some hail and wind potential in there as well. So, again, just continuing to track that. I've seen storms like this before. They end up getting a tornado warning about the same time of year, so gotta pay attention. I know sunsets around 7:30. Once we lose that daytime heating, this stuff should kind of start to fade some more. I know it's a situation here too, where the sunset 7:30. That's still 3 more hours away though. As we're tracking things, the hail threat, it may linger a little longer, but when it's wind tornado threat, it's not going to probably linger forever in this setup. This is a marginal risk. But you see some information I know I'm looking at coming in around the Cowrie community in Grady County in Georgia. Peace-size hail reported. Again, these are not very significant reports. So that's the good news as we're looking at the situation. That's the good news, but we're just going to keep on tracking this. And the rotation tracker been picking up on this a good bit. I know as I zoom in, we have a couple other warnings way to the north outside of our area. One in northwest Alabama, one in Tennessee, there east of Nashville. Again, just continuing to give you guys the very latest here on all of this. We've been on for about an hour now. Let's see if there's any questions or comments that we need to get to here on all the different platforms that I'm watching. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I thank you guys for watching here on Facebook, Twitter, /X, YouTube, and Twitch, or Twitch. I mean, you're not watching on all of them at the same time, but you get what I mean. I know it's going to be a lot busier coming up, though. This is, again, a very small appetizer to what could be a very, very big problem coming up. Again, I'm telling you all that to prepare you, not scare you, because, we just want to make sure. I don't want to tell you 5 minutes before something happens that we knew how bad it was going to be, and we just didn't want to scare you. Talking about folks out toward like Mississippi and Alabama, more so than our area, in parts of Louisiana on Saturday. But, we could wait to the last second and then say, oh, it's happening. You got to go to that mobile home right now. I want to tell you ahead of time that the mobile homes out there toward like Mississippi, Alabama, even maybe in Tennessee as well to some degree, but then Louisiana could be a big problem, and even in Missouri and some of the surrounding states with the wind threat Friday night out of Illinois. We really want you guys seeking such and such as 30 billion. Some of the severe thunderstorm warnings that could be in play up there Friday night could be tornadic-like winds that are coming through. So even if it isn't a tornado, you could have tornado-like damage. So we really want to seek such and such as 30 billion and get as many walls between you and the outside as possible, and protect yourself from flying debris by putting on a bicycle helmet, something like that. So we hope the situation doesn't come into fruition and play like it could, but it could be a big problem as we look ahead and toward the timeline. Again, we're just continuing to give you guys the latest. It's 4:38 here on this Thursday afternoon. I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. We have the 2 severe thunderstorm warnings continuing here, the one north of I-10, the one west of I-75. And we're just going to keep on looking at this here. Make sure for your protection, move to an interior room on the lowest floor of a building here as we watch, as we track. I know that hail size looks like it's come down a little on both of these here, which is a good sign, but we're just going to have to continue to give you guys the latest updates here on what is happening Looks like we got a, let's see here. Let me check my warnings. Okay, that's a warning outside of area that just came up. We have a couple in Tennessee now and one in Alabama, but thunderstorm warnings. We have the two in our area. This one right here, that's a lot of wind potential moving right there toward 319. US 319 going out of Bradfordville into South Georgia. That's kind of the road you take probably from Tallahassee to Thomasville there in general, the bigger road. Some wind hazard there. And then and hail hazard to some degree. The tornado threat probably dropped a little on that. No formal tornado warnings in play here. Haven't had anything like that yet today. Hopefully, we don't get to that point. But we're just going to continue to give you guys the very latest. So we're just trying to stay on top of things here. Trying to keep you guys safe, obviously, with what's going on. Let me go ahead here. We were hoping we wouldn't have to stay on quite this long, quite honestly, in this type of situation here. And with some of the trends being a little bit weaker right now, I think I want to take a break here in the coverage. So I'm just trying to kind of, sometimes have it set so I can go, if we're not going to be on with a watch, and I have it set up for every half hour. I can't remember if I set something up on our other source here, so I hate to throw it to something and then it had the wrong information, but just giving the heads up, that might be what I do here in a second, and then I can change it real quick. But again, continuing to watch things, continuing to track them here in the Weather Center. 4:41 is the time right now. I think what we're going to do, I may have some type of other information on that from our event back on Monday. But we're going to go ahead and take a break. We're going to plan to come back at 5 o'clock unless we need to pop back in sooner. So I'm looking a little bit better right now, but we're going to go ahead and catch our breath here for the time being. We still have two warnings. One till 5 o'clock for portions of Leon, Grady, and Thomas, and another till 5 o'clock for portions of Colquitt and Worth. So I'm going to continue to watch them. If we get a tornado warning on something here, we'll pop back in at once, and then if it's a escalation, we may need to pop back in sooner as well. But tornado warning would get us back on immediately. So hopefully that didn't happen here, but it could. We'll be back here at 5 o'clock unless we need to pop back in sooner. So keep it tuned to Cloud Weather. We'll keep you up to date here from the Weather Center. I'm watching things from the North Central Florida studios in Bradford County, the historic areas where I'm at here, keeping an eye on the situation.
This is a clouds weather alert.
Meteorologist Casey Cloud back here in Weather Center at the top of the hour. It's 5 o'clock as I continue to watch some strong to severe thunderstorms across the region. I know that warning near the Florida-Georgia border went away, and also now, as of at least this moment, the severe thunderstorm warning there for Colquitt and Worth has gone away, though there was recently a gust reported to about 51 miles an hour. So the warning was just for the hail, and with the winds only about 50 or so, but we may get another warning issued here momentarily. It's hard to say. The wind potential doesn't look all that great. Hail potential is, right on the edge of it, but needs a warning. We're still watching some other acts, and this is a storm here down toward southwestern parts of Grady County, southeastern parts of Decatur County that might need a warning here over the next little bit. So there's still a lot of strong activity here on the Doppler. Definitely a nasty picture here that'll be worth watching as we move through the timeline. So again, just looking through everything here right now, just trying to give you guys the very latest. Into that one area there, the southwest parts of Grady County, we're going to watch the hail signature here for sure. And you see how there was one out ahead of that too. So that environment might have been worked over just a little bit. But as we look here north of Moultrie, that's worth watching. But right now, I'm honestly not seeing anything that's just overwhelming, but it's not going to take much to get another warning here. So, and we have this action to contend with here right now. We also have what is going to likely take place in the days to come. I know it's 5 o'clock or so, so if nothing else here, if we do wrap up and kind of just go to a radar mode for a while and see if we need to pop back in, I want to make sure I at least recap here what could happen toward that Friday night, Saturday, Sunday timeline, and even starting off Friday during the day, maybe with a wildfire threat toward like Oklahoma and that vicinity with some very strong winds, not with rain, but after that there'll be rain and storms, and that'll ensue here Friday night, Friday evening here, maybe around, maybe a little before, give or take sunset, but this could be very bad here, folks, toward parts of the center of the country. This is that risk assessment here from the Storm Prediction Center, Norman, Oklahoma. It shows the threat there for parts of Missouri and Iowa and Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Arkansas being very significant. We could be talking about the potential for some really significant wind damage here. Could have a lot of power outages. There, especially in that purple zone. That includes areas like Cape Girardeau and St. Louis. I mean, Farmington, Missouri is in there too. And points in between. Go up north, you have Hannibal there in Missouri. To the east, you have Peoria, Illinois, Springfield, Illinois. Over down toward Paducah in Kentucky. That vicinity, at least under this here as well. That's for the wind. But then the tornado risk, strong tornadoes possible, even in western Alabama in the overnight. I mean, we're talking about 3, 4, 5 in the morning, the wee hours down toward northwest and western Alabama. We could have a strong tornado in that vicinity. That's before the bigger threat later in the day on Saturday. So we got a big problem on our hands. We hope somehow things don't come together just wrong and slash just right. Right meaning a bad way here in this case. Because if they do come together, then we could have really, really bad scenarios. We could have homes completely wiped away where all that's left is their foundations, especially in the Saturday. There's a chance if we get too much convection Friday night, it could mess up in a good way. Not having much convection, that's a dangerous Saturday, but maybe the environment might just be too volatile where that won't make as big of a difference as it would seem to make here in the line of thinking. So hail risk is significant as well. Could have 2-inch size hail or larger, especially in that black area there. You see the black hatched area. And as we get towards Saturday after 7 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Eastern, into Sunday at 7 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Eastern, you're going to see a very significant setup there in that purple extreme danger. I mean, just as bad as it gets, probably going to have a high risk. I don't know when to say that, but this could be our first high risk in a while in terms of this, tornadic danger being so significant. And in fact, this could be one of the worst severe threats of the entire decade here for parts of our country. I mean, we've had hurricanes that have been real bad already. Helene, very well could have been the worst hurricane this decade here. Don't get me wrong. in terms of this, but in terms of severe weather, in terms of convective activity, this could be the worst tornado outbreak, or one of the worst of the entire decade. One of the worst weather situations of the entire decade here coming toward this weekend. That purple zone, we're very concerned, and we've had some of these in Oklahoma, and sometimes they'll verify really bad, sometimes they won't. So it's not a guarantee they'll verify here, but this area is really vulnerable. It's something, where you have trouble seeing the tornadoes sometimes. Like in Oklahoma, at least you can sometimes see them headed your way. But in Alabama, Mississippi, some of this could be rain wrapped, and then you have more trees. It's very hard to see them coming your way here, Louisiana and the like. Northwest Florida, even, I haven't really mentioned this, but even a little sliver in Northwest Florida, probably around like Molino, somewhere around there. They're under a 4 out of 5 risk too, and 3 out of 5 risk gets all the way into Western counties. I mean, you're talking about communities like Apalachicola and Fort Bainbridge under a 3 out of 5 risk. Significant severe weather possible there. With the Storm Prediction Center outlook, you see Atlanta under this, Nashville. That's where the SEC men's basketball tournament will be going on Saturday afternoon. So, we had that terrible tornado back. I guess it was 2008 there in Atlanta during the SEC tournament. Even somebody losing their life there in the community there at the actual tournament. They had to move it after there was too much damage to the Georgia Dome back then. So, what a mess. And as I get here toward your day 4 through 8 outlook, which is going to be day 4, as we make sure we focus on that, from around Scranton, Pennsylvania, to around Stark and Gainesville here in our area, we have what would be considered a 2 out of 5 severe weather risk. So this is going to be a big deal here, folks. I keep talking about it over and over because of the grave concerns that are coming into play here as we look ahead in toward the timeline. But I mean, if you're kind of with us here back on that Monday morning, we had that terrible tornado on Lake Mary. That was an EF2 tornado. That was one EF2 tornado. And that purple zone on Saturday, we could be talking about many tornadoes that are EF2, EF3, maybe even EF4 plus type of accent. Don't say it. I'm not saying it to scare you. I'm saying it to prepare you. We're very, very, very concerned about what could happen out toward the west. You really don't want to be mobile home in this type of situation if you can help it, because those structures, instead of an EF2, EF3 tornado wiping it away, an EF1 tornado, even an EF0, could do major, major damage because of the way those are built. So, again, not good stuff here as we're looking ahead in toward the timeline. Your tornado safety tips here: make sure you seek shelter inside a sturdy building. Get as many walls between you and the outside as possible, and protect yourself from flying debris by putting on a bicycle helmet, football helmet, baseball helmet, something like that. So again, very important to keep in mind here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here. Really dangerous. And another thing I need to mention here, before we forget, I know, UF students are going to be going on spring break here coming up. Some of the public schools as well, going on spring break. Make sure you're paying attention to the weather on where you're going, on where you're headed here, because it may, be very different than what you're used to seeing. And this is, even different than what these folks are used to seeing. But it's, something where you could have a really volatile tornado, and volatile weather setup as you head off toward the west or north, depending on where you're going. And then folks like coming back to FSU and have been on spring break this past week, make sure you're giving yourself extra time to get to your destination. You don't want to get caught, because some of these storms could be coming through on Sunday. I mean, we have different sporting events on Sunday, like your baseball schedule. We'll probably see some more changes there with some different things. Softball, I saw a change there a little while ago. I think it was FSU there with that. But then the Players Golf Tournament could have some changes there too, with the bad weather coming in on Sunday, depending on the overall timeline. But we just don't want folks out on the road in this, because some of this could come through right when it's time to get back to, that campus there for classes next week. You don't want to get caught on the interstate in some inclement weather. It doesn't even have to be a tornado, like if you're headed from like Tampa up to Tallahassee, let's say, getting on I-75 to I-10, you could get caught in a squall line, 60, 70 mile an hour winds, a tree could fall, and then you could have a tragic outcome. So you just got to be really, really mindful of what could happen here as we're looking ahead in toward the timeline here, folks. Again, some very serious stuff that we're talking about. Very serious situation here for sure. Being on a Sunday, and that weekend further out, but Sunday for parts of our area, folks are headed to different places, potentially headed back, and you got to be aware of the potential consequences that this severe weather may bring. It can be very serious, folks, but I hope not. A lot of folks, not a hurricane, so not everybody's going to see this total devastation. Don't get me wrong. Tornadoes, more isolated, wind damage, scattered, not like a hurricane where everybody's getting the winds, but still, the areas that get this accent to the max could have it really bad. By the way, 59-mile-an-hour wind gusts was reported. It just came in a little while ago, but 4:34 is when it happened in Worth County around the Pritchett community. I know that storm did not have the warning for the wind potential, but we were tracking it anyway, for the hail potential. And there were winds there at about almost, 60, which 59 is 58 plus. So that's technically a severe gust that would, if it was for wind, it would verify the warning, but we'll say it kind of verifies the severe warning in general, even though the warning was technically listed for hail. It does kind of verify the warning in some ways that was in play further on up there in toward that community. So, continuing to watch things right now, we have some strong storms for sure. As we're looking at things, they're not severe right now, at least not severe warned. But we have some pretty strong storms north of Tallahassee. It's north of Bradfordville, an advisory in play. Hail's there right now, sitting at about nickel size, potentially in gust of 40. With this storm right here, a little bit of a hook, gust of 40.5 inch hail possible there, Miccosukee to Monticello. Ooh, I don't know if I like that rotation popping back in there. That's the storm, I think, that we were tracking north of Tallahassee that had the rotation. You see how it kind of was further up there earlier, and then now it's popping back in a little bit. That's a little bit cause for concern. It's not in the perfect run spot, for this danger, but gotta pay attention. I know in Georgia we're watching some strong storms with some hail possible that could be under severe limits as well. Terrell County there could have gusts of 40 or so and hail a half-inch in diameter. But then this one right here, what kind of catches my eye a little. It's not exactly in the right spot for that, but there's definitely some rotation. There's inflow, not a tornado. Doesn't look like a tornado, but there's some inflow. I will say that rotation, that's the 5:11 scan, 5:11 p.m., 5:11 p.m. It's not exactly in the right spot, but it's something to watch to see if it gets under the convection, because then we would have more of a problem here. We talked about the storm eventually headed toward Monticello. That vicinity earlier on, and that's kind of what's happening here. So again, just continuing to track this, continuing to give you guys the very latest here. Continuing to give you guys the very latest on exactly what is happening to protect you, your friends, and your family. So, again, let's see what else we might have here. Just trying to give you guys the very latest. I know I'm going to show you something else here in a second. First off, I'm going to put dew points on. They're a lot lower to the east. That's what's going to reduce, the severe threat or even much rain, thunderstorm action around it's dark later. Because the temperatures are warmer if you look outside. I'll put the camera up. It might be a little bright. It is. But the point is, you think, oh, we're going to get a bunch of instability because of the daytime heating. Well, the instability is really thin off toward the north and west. So that's good. Even if, you get a little. We have a little. Don't get me wrong. We don't have a lot of the moisture in play. We don't have it's going to be hard for the storms to really hold together toward the south and east. We cover 62 counties, and with this setup, things will be weakened as they get further on off, which is great news, obviously. But on Saturday, Sunday, they'll be weakening eventually as they get further off, too. But we still have to pay attention because the overall, the overall peak of things, the overall kind of just the cap, the maximum potential with the threat is much higher to start off with. So much higher. This is a low end risk. If you start off here, if you have a just overall look at things, you want to see what a low end marginal risk looks like. This is kind of what we're doing with the lowest 1 out of 5 risk. What we have toward the weekend could be the maximum, the worst type of severe weather, a 5 out of 5 risk further off toward the west, toward like Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana could be catastrophic in some spots. We're talking about whole homes, could just be, in pieces. We haven't seen too much of that lately from a tornado threat, where it's not just like what they had in Lake Mary, which we had a lot of damage to a home, uninhabitable, I would say, down there in Lake Mary and Seminole County. Instead of this one home, we could be talking about dozens upon dozens of homes, different areas, of that region or different parts of the country even, that are just completely gone in terms of the debris that's thrown about. All that's left is a foundation here. And for mobile homes, obviously, it doesn't even take as much wind. It doesn't take like an EF3 or EF4, something like that, to do some, that type of damage. A mobile home could be ripped apart in like an EF1 tornado. So what I mean by that, I'll put the scale up again. An EF1, mobile home, could be, even an EF0, a tree could fall and it can make it uninhabitable, or even damaged winds. Definitely see that. But we're talking about, those foundations, just all that's left. It's probably more than EF4, but those are definitely a possibility here as we look ahead. It kind of depends. Sometimes home built better, it would take more like an EF4 to do that, but not out of the question. If the home isn't built as good, maybe EF3 still could be just really bad damage. And, those, once you get, EF3 higher, you could just have big problems. You could have fatalities. Those tornadoes in Georgia there in 2017, the 8-hour tornadic situation in the night, that was an EF3. The Albany tornado that afternoon, EF3. Those both are mobile home areas. And we had a terrible loss of life, So, so many folks, perished in that horrible event there, January 21st, 2017, and ironically, January 21st, 2025, so same areas there, ended up having that winter storm come on through with all that snow, especially Albany. That's just crazy. And Leesburg, just north of that too, some of those areas have a half foot of snow. Crazy to think about how sometimes, at times, of the year, you have the same date on the calendar. Instead, you have a big contrast in terms of the weather impacts. And I know just right after that, we had cool air come back in and into the picture in 2017. But point being, we're continuing to watch staying strong thunderstorm impacting Cook, West Central Berrien now till 6 o'clock. Also, a part of it looks like Colquitt County and over toward Tift County as well. Strong storm, not quite under a warning. These are close to getting warnings, so I don't really feel great about cutting the stream off completely, but I don't think there's enough right now to do, and this is a really iffy situation, enough to do half-hour cut-ins, and there's not a watch and no warnings like what we were seeing. We thought they might continue. They're not quite doing that right now, but we could get more warnings. So what we're going to do, we're just going to go ahead and leave the stream up, we kind of so many different parts of cloud weather sometimes, and we have, see whether we do the half-hour, or more continuous, or just leave the radar up. If we don't see anything, and can cut back in immediately if we need to. We've kind of done all three here. That's, at least when I switch over to that here in a moment, we don't normally have to do all three on one stream. Normally the situation's a little bit more one way or the other here, but just kind of been bouncing up and bouncing down here to some degree. So we're going to keep an eye on things. We're going to monitor. If we need to cut back into the stream, we will. Here as the scenario does move along. Just thanks so much for tuning in and trusting me here on this Thursday. We're going to be back with a formal update here late tonight. And we got big problems out toward the west here as we look ahead in toward the timeline. And there's a decent chance we'll still have to cut back in to the stream at some point, but there's no formal warnings right now, which is good. But we're going to keep our eyes on the situation. I'll at least leave the radar running a little longer. Eventually, maybe cut it off. You can go to that interactiveradar.com/radar for when we're not here on the air. But we're just going to leave the stream up for now. And if we need to cut back in, we will. Thanks so much for tuning in and trusting me for now. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. Stay tuned, stay safe. And right now, we're just going to kind of leave the radar up. Let me go ahead first and put a loop on this so you guys can kind of get the idea of what's going on. So I have to render that real quick from other source. So let me do that here. Let me do that. Again, an overall pretty low in risk for today, but that's going to be a lot different coming up. A stark contrast to what is to come in the days to come, with the really, really big national danger Then there's areas further up north, they want to be in a basement. You guys up there want to be in a basement. If you have a tornadic situation come your way, very, very important to take into consideration here. So, because these tornadoes could really be bad news here as we look ahead into toward the timeline. So, let me go ahead and look that radar for you guys now. That'll do it for the time being. We'll break back into the stream again if needed. Otherwise, stay tuned, stay safe, and we'll be back with a full update here late tonight.